A recent study showed that 97% of those installations that were looked at showed significant safety issues. The fifth annual risk assessment survey came out and identified three major areas that will affect the possibility of solar becoming the dominant form of energy on the grid in the coming years. And wind and solar have, for the first time, surpassed coal for a period of 5 months, the first 5 months of 2023. I'm Jay Warmke with Blue Rock Station, and this is the news from the solar industry for the week of June 26th. Well, a study by Heliovolta found initially that 62% of all of the installations that they studied had significant safety issues. This was then followed by another study by Clean Energy Associates that found a whopping 97% of these installations did present significant safety issues. They studied 600 installations, primarily commercial rooftop solar installations, and they suffered from overheating and improper installation of equipment. 59% of these had wire management and improper termination issues. The main issues that were identified were grounding issues, damage to the modules themselves, incompatible connectors that were field installed on site, and poor terminations, just poor connections in general. Of the years of the installations that were studied, 2020 was in fact the worst year for solar installations, as long as some worst years for other things as well. The Interstate Renewable Energy Council has issued a grade card for interconnection policies for the various states. They did study things like the cost of getting an interconnection permit, the efficiency of the process, the transparency of how the rules are applied, and what you need to present to the organization to get interconnection permission, what technologies are eligible to connect. Now, 39 states currently have statewide policies for interconnecting renewable energy systems to the grid. Now, only one of these states received an A from the IREC. That was New Mexico. There were 6 states that received a B grade, which was Arizona, California, the District of Columbia, Illinois, Michigan, and New York. And then there were a number of states that received failing grades. Now, these states include Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Georgia, Idaho, Kansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Wyoming. Now, interconnection has largely been cited as one of the main barriers to the expansion of renewable energy within the nation. A company known as Kilowatt Hour Analytics, which is a clean energy insurance company, has issued the 5th annual risk assessment report. Now, they did identify 3 major areas that are presenting a risk to solar becoming a dominant player on the energy grid. One is the rise of extreme weather events, particularly hailstorms, which do have an adverse effect on large solar arrays. As the technology is changing, we're seeing larger solar panels, thinner glass, which makes them more susceptible to hail damage. They did find that tracking systems that then put the panels in what they refer to as stow mode, which is basically a acute angle so that the hail just slides off, will reduce premiums on those systems by as much as 35%, avoiding a lot of hail damage. System underperformance is the second major impediment. Apparently, a lot of the production estimates are overly optimistic, and this is in large part, once again, to climate change, where all of the models for what these things will produce are based on historic data, and that data is changing, and in many cases becoming less desirable for solar production. And of course, the third major area is labor shortage. There are some projections that we'll need as many as 1 million solar installers before the year 2030 to meet the targeted goal. surveys of installation companies have found that more than 50% respond that lack of skilled labor is the major impediment to growing their company. And even though we've heard a lot about supply chain disruptions in recent months, only about 21% of those surveyed cited that as the major impediment to growth. Wind and solar have, for the first 5 months of this year, 2023, have exceeded production on the grid from coal. Renewables now provide more energy on our grid than any other fuel source other than natural gas. It's significant that coal is being phased out as a provider of electricity, in that even though currently coal amounts to about 20% of the production on the grid, it accounts for well in excess of 50% of all of the CO2 emissions that lead to global warming. Also significantly in this report, for the first time worldwide, investment in solar has exceeded worldwide investment in oil. So we truly are in the age of renewable energy. And Vikram Solar, which is a company out of India, has announced that they're going to be investing $1.5 billion in establishing U.S. solar panel and cell manufacturing here in the United States. This is largely the result of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was passed last year, which gives incentives for American-made product being installed in any solar installations here in the United States. Now, they have announced that phase 1 has begun of their investment in the U.S. This is opening a 2 gigawatt manufacturing plant in Brighton, Colorado, looking to open by the end of 2024 and will employ about 900 people. Then they've announced there will be a phase 2 to this expansion within the U.S., which will be a much larger facility somewhere in the southern United States. They haven't announced where. It should employ around 1,500 people, and no date for the opening of that facility has been announced either. And that's the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.